Hi, LP.
Hey Josh, what's up?
Not too much. I'd like to actually like to start this episode by saying that I love you,
I love you.
and it's been a long time coming to bring you onto the program. And I'd like firstly to say thank you for the program because no proof as we know and love it would not exist if not for you and Alex. And I
Yeah.
get to tell this story pretty often now, which feels really great. Is that in my decision to stop drinking in the way that it happened, much more gently than some other stories that I was privy to at the time, kept me from really talking about it. And it wasn't until I started realizing some of the gifts that come with sobriety that I realized that it was that could be the side of it that I could talk about. And in that, I think you and Alex heard a story that I didn't know that I was telling, and even having that told back to me was beyond revelatory
Yeah.
in what my story could become to others. And the two of you asking for the creation of something that we didn't know would be no proof has really become such a great selfish endeavor in creating and bringing together all of these different conversations from the folks that arrive to sobriety differently but get to share in the joys of what comes afterward. And it's just selfish in that I wish that I had these conversations at the time
Yeah.
when I was wondering if I should or could stay within the hospitality industry, or even just kind of like questioning some of my own motives. So, firstly, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you. Because I don't know that many people know this, but there was a period of time in the early stages for me of sobriety, or just I think self like reflection that I was reaching out. I reached out to you and I reached out to Chris Cardone, and I was like, hey, I think that I just want to cut alcohol out. And just trying to navigate that in and of itself is so heavy,
Hmm.
as an individual who is around it all the time. And I mean, in many ways I think self-medicated with it and used it as a social conduit. And yeah, I was just trying to figure it out, but the conversation I had with you specifically replays in my head often. And it was very pivotal in the decision being made to become sober. And it didn't feel forced. Whereas before, I think there were moments where I was like, well, you don't need to take that shot or you don't need to drink that glass of wine. But it was so difficult to do it. Whereas when the moment was right, you know, um, and I'm approaching 2 years, which is crazy, that everything kind of just fell into place, which was really, yeah, it's pretty awesome to think about.
I took months off here and there, but
Yeah.
even as I was doing it, or even coming out of it, it wasn't anything that like I applied much thought to until the most
Yeah.
recent, which was October 2017. What
Yeah.
stuck out for you between like, those moments where you would maybe like toy with sobriety or just abstaining versus like what made it stick for you?
So I never actually had like prior to just going cold turkey, I never actually had a moment where I slowed down or stopped, which is so interesting because in general, I don't think it consumed a lot at all, but I think there was an uncomfortability factor associated with my presence in the beverage industry as someone who was viewed as a mentor and, a business owner, peer friend, girlfriend at the time, whatever, all those hats. It just felt to me for what my goals were and what I was working towards. And then just even the moments waking up and just like not having a clear picture of what happened the night before, that I was just like, what's the point of this? Like, why am I doing this? So I think honestly, one day I just woke up and I was like, you know what? I don't like being hungover. I don't like feeling guilty for doing nothing. I don't ever want to be in a position where I'm questioning whether or not I'm making decisions that are really aligned with what my values are. And I think that was also another part of it. And how can I fully show up for others if I'm not showing up for myself, right? DJ actually said something that was quite pivotal as well, which was like, you are an owner of a company called Focus on Health. And, how can you tell other people to take care of themselves if you're not taking care of yourself? And I was like, oh my God, wow. That's what a good husband does, right? Like, just makes you kind of like see your true reflection. So when I made the decision, I remember the day, it wasn't a conscious, like, I'm going to stop drinking. It was just DJ sitting on the couch drinking a beer. And he's like, hey, you want me to pour you a glass of wine? And I was kind of like, no, I'm good. And then it, was consistently like, no, I'm good. I'll take like a club soda or, and then 2 years later, we're here. But it's just so interesting because there's so many milestones. And I've also spoken to you about this since making the decision, which is like, man, this immense guilt 6 months down the line kind of set in, reflecting on things that I didn't even think would come up, and that weren't necessarily related to sobriety or drinking. Yeah, it's so interesting how I think it provides you with so much more self-awareness.
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting to hear what DJ said about that because it kind of like runs parallel of even the creation of Focus on Health
Yeah,
of, we are folks within hospitality that are hospitable to others other than ourselves.
yeah, yeah.
Was
That's
that kind of
exactly
like creation of like did that story of how Focus on Health came to be like play in your mind when you were kind of like in those decision making moments?
I think so. I think also too because again, it didn't feel forced, which I thought was so cool about it. It was just me really leaning into the flow of what was naturally occurring. But then also being open to like, if you decide to drink again, that's okay. And maybe this journey is just allowing you to evolve in a personal manner and way that is necessary for your growth, right? And so, Alex came up with the concept for Focus on Health, and then even me reaching out to her to kind of be like, what are you doing with this? Because I'm kind of at a point where I'm realizing the importance of this for myself so that I can better serve others. It is certainly a constant theme in what I take into consideration with everything I do in regards to, the many hats that I wear in the industry. And it's really embedded itself in the way that I think I teach bartenders to tell stories with the cocktails they make, and I gain a better understanding for appreciating the stories associated with like spirits and wine and beer, because I think the thing I was missing before was you're kind of on autopilot, when you're in it. And this has forced me to slow down and reflect, which makes my work so much more fulfilling.
What have you found in this reflection period?
So the hardest thing to kind of swallow, I found that I was very critical of others and I expected a lot of the people who are in my life. But I had to really, and it goes back to that statement DJ was making. I had to really take a hard look in the mirror at myself and acknowledge I'm also not perfect. And in doing that, there's humility that comes with that, right? Acknowledging that I'm probably a villain in someone's story. I've probably caused harm to someone, even if that wasn't my intention. But living with that as someone who, I think I'm a good person. I think I'm a good friend. I think I have amazing values and morals that make me feel good about waking up every morning and going to bed at night. But on the receiving end, that doesn't necessarily mean I haven't caused harm to someone, right? So what that's allowed me to really do is be a lot more forgiving of myself, be a lot more forgiving of others, create space, have a lot more empathy. And that honestly just ties into being a better leader and a better human. I think acknowledging we are human and that there are so many factors that impact our day to day. Having kids helps with that a lot too, as you know, because the brands and even the individuals I've worked with who have so much space for being flexible and understanding of my schedule and changing things. And it's not always an easy thing to do, right? So yeah, it's been really hard, and I'm still like dealing with that on a day to day in a natural manner. It's not like a let's go through the boxes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's very much like, oh well, maybe this person's going through a hard time. Maybe this person, maybe there's something impacting the reasons why they're making the decisions they're making, and how can I show up for them in a way that still allows me to be whole and full. Maybe I should take a step back and not get involved. So yeah, especially with just the climate of the world, I think that those are the questions and things that are the most important to ensure that we're okay.
I definitely felt like a shift in myself of in early sobriety. I felt like I was kind of like ticking those boxes and like doing more check-ins that seemed like I was like working sobriety.
Yeah.
And then somewhere within all that, it felt like sobriety was just a lived-in experience. Like I didn't feel like I had to like turn on my sober brain and like make sure I was making the decisions that a sober person would make. I had
That
that like
makes sense.
realization that like I am a sober person, so any decision that I make is that of a sober person. I didn't have
Yeah.
to like step through this character of sobriety. How are you feeling in your lived sobriety now?
Yeah, I'm pretty much a homebody. I have one kid and then another on the way. Any hour or day now, which is awesome. But I think I in the beginning for sure was had to make active decisions to like not be around people who were imbibing, especially in settings where heavy drinking was happening because it would really just impact me negatively. There were certain industry parties I wouldn't go to. There were certain spaces I couldn't go to, certain people I couldn't be around. There definitely were a lot more boundaries put up in that really, I mean, ultimately, it really changed the way I interacted with individuals. Now, I don't even have to think about it. If I'm in a space or a bar and there's alcoholic, I'm fine. I don't feel like, watching DJ drink a beer is like, oh, maybe I'll salivate a little bit, but that's just, because of what, drinking beer kind of does to your salivary glands. But there's so many alternatives now too on the market that like I'm drinking like Colonel right now. It's non-alcoholic red, and it's the ritual I miss more than anything else, not necessarily the act of imbibing. And I think that to me is also kind of amazing because what I realize is that what's important for me in my relationship with what we deal with as a vessel is really in the appreciation of the product and not how the product impacts me, which is a relief to say. But it's ever evolving and it changes every single day. And I think that I just try my best to be very aware of how things impact my body language, my posture, my that feeling you kind of get in the back of your throat when something isn't, sitting with you the right way. And then I honor that. So if there are moments where it's just like, I'm not comfortable, I have to leave, or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, I definitely make sure that that's something I prioritize.
I want to jump back a little bit to, you leaving spaces or not showing up in certain spaces or not being around certain individuals. I think that's something that like folks that are considering sobriety or that are in early sobriety kind of like worry about to some degree. How did you create those boundaries? How did you maintain those boundaries, and how did you kind of like grow through that moment? Because like that's kind of a pivotal moment. I feel like because we're developing our own language. Like
Yeah.
we haven't fully like talked out our story about how we talk about our own sobriety. It's still like we're testing it day by
Yeah.
day kind of thing. But how did you kind of make your way through that time?
Well, I think I'm very lucky because I'm surrounded by individuals who just like support the fact that I've made this decision in my life. I also think that I mean, you know, you, Shannon, and Alex are obviously very good friends of mine, but you know, I have DJ, I have a good support system at home as well. I've never really felt like I was forced to be at a focus on health event, right? Now, mind you, our events are very much catered on drinking responsibly, no and low, etc. But there was a period, especially post Drink Masters and like entering this sober space, that like it was very overwhelming for me. And so my initial decisions in not doing FOH activations or industry activations was merely because I just couldn't be around it, like even a little bit. And so having the support of my peers, I think also, I mean, I think you all also know me well enough and that you're self aware that at the time I was someone who was very social, and whether or not it's something you like actively thought about. So if I was actively making a decision to not be somewhere, I'm just grateful it was never like a, oh, why? It was just like, oh, yeah, yeah, no problem. Like, we'll figure it out, you know? What that's allowed me to kind of do, though, is really focus on other kind of pieces of the work that I do and the ways that I can show up for the community. And to kind of take a back seat, which has been really great for me. I really love being behind the scenes. I really love doing R&D and like cocktail conceptualization and then like coaching bartenders through those processes. And so I think this has also just allowed me to kind of become a bit more aligned with the work that I love doing. But I really place emphasis on just ensuring that the people who are around you are aligned from a values perspective, you know, respect the decisions that you make in a supportive manner and way. And there's nothing wrong with questioning. It's just a matter of how they go about doing it.
Walk me back to the Drink Masters announcement because
Yeah,
it's big, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
continued congratulations for you. It's such a monument, but you know, your life changes after something like that. You know, you enter a competition like that one way, and then especially being the winner, such as you exit a completely different person.
Yeah.
And I feel like something like that puts you in the light more frequently. You're in more places. You're around more people. How was the navigation of kind of testing your own waters through sobriety in that moment of kind of like newfound celebrity?
Oh my gosh. It was interesting. You know, it was a very stressful time for me. I think the best way to describe it is because there was this light on me that I didn't necessarily want. There were moments that individuals pass judgment, whether it be the people who are in my DMs or unfortunately people in our industry, moments of criticism, and you're trying to navigate how you control that. You're trying to navigate also like, does it really matter? Is it that important what people think about me who don't know me, right? And you're trying to like balance all those things at the same time. And ultimately, around that time, I was certainly not taking care of myself. I was, you know, I had access to like free food. So I was eating like all this red meat and not really eating vegetables and, you know, really nice wines and spirits and probably imbibing a little bit too much. And that was like definitely a moment. And this was around the time I remember reaching out to you and Chris. That was definitely the moment where I was like, I'm not dealing with something and it needs to be addressed in a more healthy manner and way. And I think that I need to start figuring out what that is. And ultimately, I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel like this moment that was supposed to be fun, this moment that was supposed to be an opportunity for me to celebrate and to be very proud of, I wasn't proud of, you know? And I took the necessary steps to feel good and better and like move my body and like was, you know, if my body was like eat a vegetable, I ate vegetable, you know. But you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, girl, you haven't had salad in a really long time. You should probably eat something green. And then eventually the sobriety kicked in and that completely changed everything. I think I talked to you about this. I definitely supplemented sugar with with the lack of alcohol, which was something you had warned me about, but I was like, whoa, I'm eating like a lot of Kit Kats. What's going on here?
Yeah,
Um,
I kept Haribo in business.
yeah, seriously, seriously. But I learned a lot about myself. I started going to therapy, and it picked up on it pretty quickly what works for me. It makes me feel like the best version of myself, but what also allows me to be present. And actually, at the end of the day, what ended up happening as a result is I ended up being a better partner, better friend, a better business owner. The product I was creating from a cocktail perspective, the clarity I had, I mean, even now, it's just, it's insane, you know? Like my palate is so much stronger. My ability to conceptualize drinks with intention that tie back to these, different elements, is really cool, and that's always been very important to me. So I feel a lot more fulfilled in the work that I do, and then the person I am at the end of the day. And it took a while, and it's still evolving, but ultimately, the decision is the best I've made. And again, who knows? I might not be sober forever, but I think that the most important thing for me is like ensuring that I am always in control of the decisions I'm making to be the best version of myself in every hat that I wear, especially now as mom.
You said that you weren't necessarily proud of your achievement in the moment. Are you proud
Yeah.
now?
I'm so proud now. So proud. And it's because there was so much perseverance, there was so much hard work that went into, what I did. And being at the library every day and working with chefs leading up to it. And I could have taken that opportunity for granted. And I really worked hard. And ultimately, I ended up winning. But had I not won, I think I would have been really proud of myself too. And I think that's the most important thing because my goal wasn't to win. My goal was to work my butt off to do the best, to perform the best I could. And I think I ultimately did that.
Talk to me about the LP that has grown out of that experience.
Oh my gosh, so much stronger. Boundaries are a beautiful thing. I don't second guess myself now, in regards to making decisions that are best for me, in regards to, ensuring that my circle is small, which I'm very appreciative of. Small but strong, and I think before I was under the impression that having all these friends, we used the word friends so loosely, was a good thing, and ultimately I realized that even the conversations I have and have had with you, and people who are close to me are they're so meaningful. It's never a superficial conversation. It's like if I'm asking you how you are, you know what response I'm expecting, right? Which I think is so awesome because it allows me to it really allows me to just lean into and reflect on how far I've come. And I'm honestly really proud of it. It is one of the hardest things I've ever done. But again, it's like I have to look at myself and acknowledge the areas of improvement that I need before I can go around, fixing the things around me. So, yeah, it's a pretty awesome feeling, honestly.
Yeah, reflection's a big part of it because I felt like as a drinking person, like I would still look back, but through that kind of like muddied sense of nostalgia or I'm hopeful that things went a different way.
Yeah.
Whereas now, when I kind of like catch myself in those moments of reflection and hindsight, I'm able to, I pull out wins and I pull out growth within myself. Or even if it's like a situation that I wish I reacted differently or something like that. Like I'm more understanding of the
Yeah.
person who came to make those decisions, and less of just like I don't have that kind of like lingering thought of like what were we thinking. Me
Yeah.
speaking as both selves. Like I feel like I'm now like a confident self, and not constantly in this kind of like back and forth between the individual that wants to grow to be better and the individual that keeps stumbling along, like making those mistakes. Like I feel emboldened within myself now.
I agree with that. I think that's exactly it. Um, Yeah, and then I think, there are a lot of people in our industry, and even in close proximity to me. I mean, you and Shannon are both sober, as well as myself, right? And even Alex, is not a big drinker at all. And the thing that's cool about it is you see that as you evolve, the decisions you make for yourself impact the decisions that the people around you make, but also you just become more aligned with the spaces you should be occupying, the people that you should be around, etc. And I think that reflecting back, like looking back on that and seeing where I am now, it's just night and day, honestly.
I really love how vocal you are in sharing, your values, your
Yeah.
mission, the ways in which this industry can change. How does it feel having the platform that you have, being able to share what's important to you?
I was actually talking to Laura Green about this the other day, and I was, for whatever reason, just scrolling back on my Instagram and was reflecting on the fact that the type of content I post now is so different. I've always been honest, but I think now I'm kind of like unapologetically just like, here it is for you all. And I think a big part of it is that I'm a lot more comfortable with who I am as a person and an individual. I think that my approach is sharing my thoughts, my values, but not enforcing them on anyone, asking thought provoking questions, while maintaining a level of respect that I think is very essential. Because I want people to be a part of the conversation. I don't want them to be scared of being wrong because I'm not right all the time. And honestly, with the climate of the world right now, there are just a lot of matters that are very important to discuss, no matter what side you're on. It feels really good to be able to have these conversations. It feels really good to. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily assisting and navigating others in finding their voice, but I do like just thinking about some of the DMs I get and even the comments. I don't expect anyone to do anything that, one, is unsafe for them, or two, makes them uncomfortable. I do expect individuals to have some self reflection and acknowledging, in the very least, what part they play in the scenario and situation. Whether that's having a conversation in the privacy of their home, with the people they trust in spaces that they feel safe. And the reason is because I don't know your situation. And I'm never going to pass judgment. But if we don't get involved at all, I mean, nothing's going to change, right? And that's for anything and everything. It's been really cool seeing, and we all acknowledge social media is fake, right? But it's been really cool seeing people be vocal and get involved locally and whatever matters kind of align with who they are as a person. And I think that this evolution does occur in the masses. People are influenced by what they see. So yeah, I encourage people to continue to kind of speak up because I mean, we do have the power to make an impact, to make a change. Just think about the impact and the influence we have on individuals who come into our spaces when they're coming, for a drink. So I truly do believe that it's something we shouldn't take for granted because it is quite powerful.
Talk to me about this most recent article from Imbibe and what
Oh
it's like
yeah.
to be pregnant and a bartender. What's the conversations been like around that?
Yeah, I unfortunately went through some pretty terrible scenarios and situations, where I lost contracts because I was pregnant, which is obviously illegal. But I got to protect my bandwidth and my peace of mind and the decisions I make kind of navigating that. So it's been interesting because there are so many more organizations and individuals who have shown me support, and have showed up or have simply asked the question, like, how can I be there for you at this time, which has really allowed me to celebrate those spaces rather than reflect and lean into the negative kind of elements and aspects that have happened. I think they're important to bring to light, but I think dwelling on them too much really takes away from all the people doing great work. And, I've been invited to cocktail conferences and with a big old belly and bump, and been able to present in front of bartenders. And I think something that I was recently hired for a Women's History Month, like social media campaign, which will be coming up shortly, sometime in March. But one of the conversations I had with the founder of this company, which was quite interesting, is if you are hiring an individual to represent your brand, the goal and the guess, we would assume that they're a person who's responsible, serving responsibly, drinking responsibly, and conducts himself in a professional manner and way. So why does that change when we now introduce a baby? The conversation should still be the same. Otherwise, now we are discriminating an individual, right? And when we were talking about it and that was kind of put into perspective, it was like, yeah, if anything, you would probably want to ensure that the person you're hiring is more responsible, right? And as someone who's sober and doesn't even drink, I think I'm like the best hire. But it just made me reflect on the trust kind of element aspect of that. And because, again, I'm someone who's so aligned with my values that I think those decisions just come really easy for me. And then also the last element of this, which is that at the end of the day, they're a business. So I don't really hold it against them because they have to make business decisions that are best for them, respectively. So I'll just continue to work with the organizations who have figured it out, and the people who figured it out to make it work. But it was really cool hearing everyone else's stories, and I'm really loving seeing that individuals who are childbearing having more of these conversations openly because it's the only way that we can make people aware.
I think before, Laura and I got serious about our conversations about like having a child, one of my biggest fears was like the ways that a child could hold me back. And like, I hate that that was something that I thought
Yeah.
because you grow with the child. You bring a child into the world that you're still exploring. And I think even businesses need to realize like you're not stopping as an individual and being held in the past or being held away because of this child, like it's a
Yeah.
part of your story. Like what's part of my story doesn't necessarily have to like leak into what your campaign is, but that doesn't mean that I've like stopped growing or stopped hustling in the way that I had before. Like it's an enriching experience, and I've like brought pieces of what I've learned through fatherhood like to my career path. So
Yeah.
it's an understanding of being human in the way that we grow in different ways.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. I think that we often, it's so interesting because I think often we see, you guys are my family and like community is so important for me. And something Ashton Berry actually posted the other day was how do you show up for a community though? I mean, do you show up for your community? And sometimes just like putting it at a basic level of where we work with humans, and there are basic needs of support that we should be considering, I think makes it almost easier to kind of engage and figure out the best ways to support the people that we work with. So it's certainly a lesson, and that evolution will be ever evolving, especially as we introduce baby number two. But yeah, I think you put it beautifully because I am still LP entrepreneur, beverage consultant, and I don't think that for me that's going to go away. Um, just because we added mom to the the agenda.
How have you celebrated your sobriety through motherhood?
Um, it's a great question. Um, so I think about this a lot, and I, gosh, I feel like I've become such an emotional. I've always been emotional, but like even more emotional person since having kids. And I know I've talked to you about this, but I have those moments where I just look at my kid and I'm like, how could I be so obsessed with this small human who's doing nothing but just being cute right now? And I thank her I really truly do thank her for my sobriety because I think timing wise as well, that around the time I made the decision to do it, I was also, I found out like weeks later that I was pregnant. And I think in a way she kind of saved me, like because I realized kind of what you just vocalized, which is that I think the reason I was nervous to move forward with having a family was because I thought it was going to hold me back. And I feel so terrible about even thinking that for even a moment because it's made me there's this clarity that like comes over you, that makes you one hustle because you're providing for your family, but two, you don't even question the decisions you make for your family. It's like, I do not want this individual in my life. I absolutely will not be doing this job for free. Whatever it may be. And so when I look at her in those moments, I'm like so thankful because she's made me such a stronger person. I think a better person. And yeah, I'm just hoping that that continues to kind of, occur as she gets older. And I think that as much as she'll learn from me, I'm going to learn a lot more from her, to be
Hmm.
honest with you.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I also think like there's no way I could have done this as a drinking person.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely not.
Especially like toward the closer that I got to making the decision to like fully remove alcohol, I started viewing alcohol as theft. It was like theft of time, theft of feeling, theft of emotion. And one thing that people kept saying to me before our son was born was just like it's going to go fast. And dude, it does.
It does.
It's I wouldn't want to introduce one other thing that would like take away any other precious moment that we have.
Yeah.
I know that like that can sound like really cheesy and it is really cheesy. It's just like it goes so fast that I want nothing to dilute and I want nothing to take away from these like really small but deeply impactful moments that we have together. And
I
even if
agree.
that means just me feeling a little bit more sluggish, like I want to be able to get up off the couch and just go like chase him around the living room. And if I'm like hungover, I'm less likely to do that. I'm more likely to just throw on the TV. So I couldn't imagine like waking up with, an extra hindrance for the day.
I personally couldn't either, and I think the thing is it works for me, right? Like for how I want to show up, for who I want to be, for how involved I want to be in this little person's life. This is the best decision for me. And I think you put it exactly right. Like I also feel guilty when mommy's so tired because she's pregnant and she needs 10 minutes, like, to just take a beat. So, yeah, I want to be as involved as I can be. I want to be on the floor crawling around with her, reading books, and these moments are precious. This time, I can't believe she's 14 months. This time has gone by. I'm like again like days away from giving birth to baby number two, and I want to enjoy every moment. I want to remember every moment.
Hmm. That's so awesome. I'm so excited for you.
Thanks. It's
What?
so funny. I keep looking at you and I just see Arthur, and I'm like, your little twin.
I know it's crazy. It's like I'm raising like my childhood pictures of myself. Talk to me a little bit about the industry as far as like how NA offerings fit into it. Where do you see us winning right now? Because
Yeah.
especially like you and I have talked about this, like this it was a different world 5 years ago when it came to what's available to us. Where do you see us now as a win and where can we go?
I think that we're doing a great job of highlighting NA options for sure. From an evolution standpoint, I hope to see a lot more, I don't know, just thoughtfulness. I'm working on a project with I don't know if I'm allowed to announce yet, but I'm working on a project with essentially a franchise brand. And one of the things I propose is like, because they care so much about NA, is well, why don't we just make a whole like page for NA that's in the front, and that's the first thing people see before they transition into this main menu. They were like, yeah, we actually think that's a great idea. But what we want to showcase and highlight is the versatility that can come with these NA options. I mean, as you know, there's so many options in the market. The educational piece is so important because I'm not trying to necessarily emulate these classic cocktails. People, individuals are sober for various reasons. So having versatility on my menu in what I offer is just as important as having the NA option. And I guess what I'm trying to say here is that not everyone wants a riff on a margarita because it might be something they associate with drinking alcohol, right? So what I'm trying to do now with my consulting gigs is be a bit more intentional about incorporating even culturally focused NA options that don't necessarily have these NA alternatives in them. Focusing a little bit more on like the stories associated with those serves. Having, your NA margarita, NA spritz, and then also incorporating those low ABV options as well for folks who are just looking to slow down or kind of, what is the term,
Zebra
zebraing
striping.
now? Yeah, zebra striping or something like that. Because there are just so many reasons why people choose not to drink. And then really leaning into, like I've been reaching out to a lot of brands, just like, hey, can I get 15 minutes of your time to talk me through your product so that I can do, I can serve this beverage to the best of my ability in understanding what their goal was when creating this product. So yeah, it requires a lot of work, and I think one of the coolest things about the Nolo tour is that educational piece is something we integrate, and then we get to share that knowledge with the beverage industry because I still think that we sometimes are conditioned to believe, oh, and a rum alternative, I can just throw that in, you know, a rum punch variation. And it doesn't work that way because of the many different approaches that are taken to making these different these different products essentially. I think that as an industry that we've done a really good job, and I just hope we continue to kind of push the boundaries. I've quite enjoyed in the last year going to a bunch of bars all around the country and actually having a very good NA drink. But also, again, these NA wines and these NA beers are great options too. So, even considering, you know what, I don't necessarily want to put an NA beverage on my menu, but having an NA beer and wine, I think is just as good.
What are some of the bars or bartenders doing that has been exciting to you as far as like some of the NA drinks you've been served?
Yeah, I think sometimes the most simplistic thing can be the most delicious thing. And so I appreciate the simplicity. Like I had a Pathfinder guava margarita the other day and I was like, this is delicious. Exactly, right? I was like, why didn't I come up with that? And I think sometimes we just overcomplicate it. Um, and if we go back to the basics of even cooking, like what flavor profiles are homogenous and like go well together and then kind of take inspiration from there. But it was so beautiful. It had, salt rim, this vibrant orange hue to it, served on a 2x2 cube, and then had a beautiful mint sprig. And I was like, yeah, can I have 10 more of these?
And you can.
Yeah, exactly. I think the other thing too is again the you can tell the thoughtfulness that goes into the individuals who are taking the time to understand how these products are made,
Hmm.
or simply that have very good palates and can take this canvas and then deviate from it in a way that creates something that's ultimately very, very good. That doesn't just taste good, but also looks really good.
That's one of the things that like excites me most about delivering the pieces of education that we bring with us on the Nolo tour
Yeah,
is how can I think about in a beverage? It isn't us like the happy hour is great because we and then the individuals that we get to work with create these like beautiful recipes that we all get to enjoy together. But the education is kind of like for the folks that haven't necessarily considered what NA can look like in their program and
exactly.
the benefits of it. It's really important to be able to teach on, why serve a grapefruit basil smash with like an alternative tequila versus like a grapefruit basil lemonade or something like that.
Exactly.
Way of like getting your price point up on your menus, bringing more money into the account. But then additionally, like I loved what you were talking about even spirituous brands of like what is the storytelling, what is the process behind it. Like those things exist for NA brands, and I think it's really important for us to bring that education of like what questions can I be asking of these producers so that I have a story to tell across the bar. Like where did it come from, why did they have the decision to make this thing, what's the process, like what techniques were created to like either remove alcohol or make something
Yeah.
that never had alcohol in it. And it just like it's so exciting to me, and you can kind of like see when you're talking
Yeah.
about these things, others are like, oh, like I have to think about NA differently in the way that I practice, the way that I put it into a drink, but I don't have to think about it differently when I'm choosing what to bring for like my back bar or my program.
Exactly, exactly. And I think it is cool every time we have those conversations because you can kind of see the light bulb go off. But that interpretation, how it translates so differently for each respective individual. And that really goes back to like stylistically, but then also that foundational work that we all have and how different our styles are, that allows us to showcase it. So I always preach for authenticity. And then again, kind of leaning back to the cultural things like agua de Jamaica, and like a really well made agua de Jamaica, I want that all the
Hmm.
time, you know? So yeah, it's a really cool opportunity to just expand your knowledge in that way, for sure.
To tap into your drink master's brain a little bit, how can competition help propel the what's happening within NA?
I think that their learning curve is huge and it happens so fast. In competitions, I did, Drink Masters World Class. I've done the Woodford Reserve competition and a couple of others. And I'm always impressed by what I learned from others. One, in the storytelling element and presentation specifically, but then two, how they were able to take something so simplistic and like elevate it in a way that didn't necessarily like click for me initially. And so I encourage people to compete. There are some non-alcoholic competitions popping up, which are really cool. As far as being successful in them, I think it's practice R&D, have other people taste and critique your drinks. Don't don't necessarily be like complacent or like okay with like a very sweet serve or defaulting to something that is expected, like a lemonade. Really push the boundaries. Take that as an opportunity to challenge yourself. Partner with, your chefs, whether that be savory or pastry, to learn new techniques. There are so many things we can do to elevate the NA experience. And then try to find alternative ways to create NA serves that are complex without these alternatives, because I think that that's also a great challenge. And if you can be successful in creating an amazing NA serve, then I know undoubtedly that you can create an amazing drink with alcohol as well.
LP, what do you love about yourself?
I honestly, I love that. I love that there has been so much growth over the last few years, and that I'm in a position where I can look at myself in the mirror and be very happy with who I am, while acknowledging that there's so much growth that I have not even experienced, that, is to come. And yeah, I'm happy with who I am, which I don't necessarily think I could have said that a few years ago. And yeah, I think that's a huge accomplishment for sure.
Thanks, LP.
Yeah.